Hello scribes, welcome back to my channel. I'm Pika Lee, and I want to talk to you today about a huge question that a lot of us get all the time, and not only do we get this question often as an experienced writer, but we also tend to ask it quite a lot when we first start out. How long should we take to write a script, of course? I think this question can best be answered in less than 60 seconds. Yeah, that's right, you guessed it. There is no specific time frame. I can't be the judge of that, and kind of neither can you. You see, the truth is, it should take you anywhere between 24 hours to 10 years. Before we dive in, if you don't know me, I'm Pika Lee, and welcome to my channel, all about how to create the perfect writing foundation out of the hard work that you put in, the right mindset, and of course, the knowledge that I give you to do what you do best. Right. So hit that like button, subscribe, and settle in so we can talk about how to write a script effectively and quickly. I can't tell you how long it'll take you personally to write a script. I can tell you how long it generally takes me to write a script. But I know what you're really trying to ask me. How quickly can one person write a script? See, you're trying to ask me, how can you speed up the process if it's taking you 10 years? Well, let's talk about that in today's video. I've got about 7 ways that you can speed up your process and make sure you fully develop your script. First, you're going to want to research your genre. We've talked about it multiple times. There are so many different ways for you to research your genre before you start writing your film, because that's going to dictate a lot about your story, believe it or not. And I have done 2 videos that talk a little bit more about in-depth how to research your genre and just about genre as a whole, because it's so important. And I feel that a lot of writers kind of graze over this because they tend to think that they understand genre really well because they've watched it. You don't want to write from an audience's perspective because generally when you're watching something as an audience, you're not picking up on the key elements that writers are trying to inject to make a really good story. You are watching it with the knowledge that there are some jump scares and horror, and there's a lot of creepy people in there. That's not all that you want to put into your script. You want to make sure it has depth. And knowing genre and understanding why the elements are used in a specific way inside of genre is key to having a really great plot interact with the story. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you want to view my videos later and go back through them to see some of those genre videos. The next thing you really want to be aware of is making sure you are researching structure. Now, I know that you're thinking to me, well, there's only 3 acts. For screenwriting, you want to make sure that you have the formatting down. And by formatting, I mean the act structure. Now, when I say act structure, I mean, yes, there are 3 acts, obviously, but as has been said before, once you go into television or you go into different mediums of screenwriting, you are going to see that the act structure is different, especially network to network. And that is because your acts can get longer. So you can absolutely have a 3-act structure. You can have a 4-act structure, which some screenwriters actually will write a feature in. It doesn't mean that you have to sort of put it in the script as 4 acts. It just means that you can also break it down outline structurally. And if you're writing television, you might have 5, 6, 7. If you're doing a Hallmark movie, you might have 9 acts. But you want to understand why those acts are important, because when you're writing for network television versus Netflix television, you have to understand that streaming is working off of mostly a 3-act structure because there are no commercials. You will just need to know why the act structure and what it's going to suit in your story. Is this being written for television? Is this being written for a short film? Is this being written for a feature? So now you know that it's very important to know your act structure. Let's talk a little bit more about knowing your story. Now, I don't want to make this part about outlining because some people don't like to outline, and that's totally fine. There's a million other ways that you can structure and learn your story. You can do so many different things that are basically compiling notes, making a story Bible, which I sometimes do even for features because I want to write a little bit of a backstory for them, even if I don't flesh out certain beats. And you can also have a document with all of the beats lined up. The biggest part about this is just knowing your story in any way possible, in all the ways possible. Know it like the back of your hand. Know it like you're writing a memoir for this character and their story. Know it so well that you can talk about it in your sleep. You can talk about it to anybody that you come across, and when you pitch this story, you're able to memorize exactly what it's about, what are the themes, and all of the elements that are going into it and why. I don't know if you've noticed, but what tends to happen for people who don't understand their story is they get stuck. It becomes pretty much a writer's block. And then what happens when it becomes a writer's block? You sort of fall out of wanting to even write the story. And then there becomes a procrastination period where you're just avoiding having to get over this one moment that you can't figure out what's supposed to happen next, or why it matters, or why it should even be happening in the first place. And then you stay stagnant with your story for the next 9 years. Now remember, we're trying to get out of that 10-year slump where it takes us too long to write something. So know your story, understand it, be able to talk about it to anybody who asks you, so much so that they can ask you about something that could potentially be a focal point in your story. They ask you some questions about why it happens and what's their next move, and you can explain it. Remember, it's 98% development, story development, before you go sit down to write. That is the most key thing I can tell you for writing your story effectively, quickly, efficiently. You also want to have screenwriting software to help you with formatting. You don't want to have to worry about formatting and cleaning up anything grammar-wise or anything as far as formatting for a screenplay later on. You want to do it now. So if you don't have a screenwriting software, I suggest you definitely, once you've crafted your idea, you've done some research about it, and you're sort of ready to write, really way before that, you want to invest in a software that's going to be something that's ease of use for you and something that suits your needs. So of course, it's super beneficial to have that formatting software so that you're not wasting any time. And that's pretty much what we're trying to get to the point at here, right? Speed, not wasting any ounce of time. The next thing I want you to think about is understanding of time. So this is kind of going to go in hand with the next thing that I'll talk to you about soon, but the first thing I want you to understand, to preface that, is understanding time. I say this because a lot of us typically don't check out the route of our day. We don't really have a schedule, we don't really have any sort of need to put ourselves on a deadline because writing is fun, right? You shouldn't put yourself on a deadline. This is how you get that creative and amazing moment where you get to sit down and write and create when you're in that mood. But unfortunately, if you want to be a professional, you can't just wait until the moment strikes, and you can't wait until you're in the mood to write something. So unfortunately, speed comes at a cost, which is pushing yourself even when you don't feel like you want to write. And unfortunately, all professionals do this, so you will have to as well. The importance of understanding time is understanding that you may lead a busy life and you may want to have a social calendar, and you do have work and you may have a family to take care of. But what I want you to be aware about is, how can you implement some space for your writing? Is this something that is so important to you that you're gonna nail out and chisel out the time for you to actually sit and write? And you need to be conscious of the time that you don't utilize right now. This is a productivity hack, yes, but productivity is something that as freelancers you kind of have to implement because you're the only one who's managing your work. Understand how long it takes for you to sit down, sort of get everything in your space set up, get your mindset right where you want it, and that comes with practice and time. but understanding how long it takes for you to get into that headspace is a very valuable thing that a lot of writers don't really consider. It's sort of a psychology thing if you think about it. You have to figure out what is the thing that's going to switch your mindset into the gear that you want it for creating, and how long does it take you to do that? And how can you make it better as a process, and how can you actually help yourself get ready to sit and work? And that brings me to my next thing, which, like I said, goes hand in hand. I know that was cheesy, but it was the only way that I can kind of show you. It's the hand in hand thing. I didn't have another hand, is what I'm trying to say, so I had to hold my own hand. Let's keep going. Committing to a routine is something that I definitely do myself. And I tell a lot of my friends, if you are not in the right mindset to sit and do something, you have to create a routine. Now, this for certain is already psychologically proven. We feel most comfortable in a routine. And that's why they put children into routines, and that's how we learn. We learn by repetition. And so what I suggest to you is, once you have an understanding of your time, sort of like you're doing finances, right? You break down your time, you see how much you have left over for things, and then you can absolutely create your own routine off of that. And once you implement routine, you can figure out and sort of recalibrate when you need to. Because I know that things are ever changing, you want to make sure that you write down your routine. And then what I like to do is go back and see if that routine suited me correctly in the way that I laid it out. So for example, I have a journal. I've showed you that journal a few times, so if you haven't seen it, again, make sure to subscribe to my channel so that you can find those videos a little bit later. But for now, what I typically do is I write down my schedule, which is sort of a Sunday through Saturday, and I schedule in what I'm going to do for the week. So that's how I recalibrate. I just use the data from the week to figure out if that works for me. Now, you can do the same thing if you've got some sort of other arrangement or engagements that you're involved in. Figure out what the best time for you to slot in your writing time. And if it doesn't work one week, you move it the next week to some other time. Or you can again go week to week, or you can actually be rigorous enough to schedule out, if you've got a consistent schedule, monthly, your sort of process. Now, usually if I know how long I want to take to complete a project, if I want to get something done in a week, I will set aside a month calendar so that I can go in and write sort of a schedule for myself. How many words I want to write per day, how many pages. So scheduling out your writing process is going to help you set a routine, keep and calculate your time, and make sure that when you break it down and you actually sit down to write, it's going to be effective for you. And this might take you a few months to figure out how quickly you can do this. But remember that the point of doing this is making sure you're as quick and effective as possible. And that's by working out all of the kinks, by presetting everything that you'll need as a tool to get your writing done. The last tip that I would suggest to you is planning for interruptions. Yeah, I'm not crazy enough to think that you're gonna get it done without any interruptions. I mean, there's gonna be a birthday that pops up, or there's gonna be a random night that your family comes over for dinner and you schedule time to write and you can't write that night. And it's okay to skip that. For your sanity, you want to make sure you have a little bit of fun and freedom when you actually go to write a project. You don't want to be stuck and isolated, because that's not truly how writers work. We do say that writers are the type of people who like to stay indoors and do nothing and not talk or socialize with people. That's absolutely not true. Most of our writing comes from interaction with people. So I advise you to make sure you build in some extra time for you to have any little interruptions. You also have to give yourself time to have breaks. So also calculate your breaks. Make sure you're not overworking yourself when you've got life and work and possibly school, as well as writing a project in a month or in less than a month. Make sure you just have that built in so that you can have breaks for you to just be you. So those are my tips for writing faster. I hope that this helps you become more of an efficient, effective writer, and I hope that you enjoyed this video today. If you have any questions for me, leave them down below. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like this video. It does help me know if I'm making the right content for you all. Don't forget to help the community and drop down your tips for faster writing and effective writing. And I'll see you scribes on the next one. I enjoyed being here with you too. With you too? Who was the two?